my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and these are the hottest Golden Age comics for the week. Before I get into the list, I kind of want to explain my idea, my way of thinking when I make these lists. Um, when I come up with the list, I basically look at comics that sold in the past week from places like Heritage Auctions, eBay, Comic Connect, Comic Link, my comic shop. I look at all those sales and I pick books based on what I think are cool books and ones that I think are interesting sales. And I don't pick them based on looking previously at how much they sold for. So for me, it's always a surprise to see if these are new records or just, new losses or whatever. So I like looking at these books and seeing how they perform. So these are interesting sales to me. So some books that I personally like, some books that I might not even know, I just think are cool sales. So a lot of the time it's, a surprise for me. And I don't go in this with picking, oh, these are the books that, broke records and all. I don't always go that way. So my point is, this is a weird way, a kind of a random sampling of the market. And by doing so, we can actually almost get a sense of how well the market is performing. And that's what I kind of want to really push in this video, that I'm really looking at how well is the market. If you're doing a random sampling of the market, how well does it perform? And I think it's actually performing quite well based on this random sampling. We'll get right into it right now. Number 10 on the list is Crime Suspense Stories number 11. This is from EC Comics, 1952. It's a Johnny Craig cover. It's a cool one because it's like really one of those morbid covers that EC produced, where you got little bodies hanging in a freezer. I mean, it's pretty extreme. Great cover, awesome book. This was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $459.95. We'll just round it to $460, okay? Now, this is up quite significantly. The previous record for this book was set back in April 2023, so just last year, for $348. So this is up $111, so up like 30% from the previous year. Not too bad. EC comics are actually fairly common on the census. And the thing to understand with these, EC comics were one of the few Golden Age comics that actually did benefit from the COVID boost. So for this sale, it's actually showing that there's resilience in these books, and they're continuing to climb. There's 119 of these on the census, and 114 are Universal Blue Labels. Number 9 on the list is Black Cat Comics number 1. This is from Harvey Comics, 1946. It is a Joe Simon cover. The book that I'm going to be showing is actually from the Reuben Blades collection. And this one is the first ongoing series for the Black Cat. Now, the Black Cat is actually an interesting series because it started out as a female superhero. Later on, it became a Western comic with the same character. And then later on, after that, it became a horror title. And it has some of the most iconic horror, pre-code horror covers of all time. So it is just a really important series. And the Black Cat is kind of a cool character. This one also features almost like foreshadowing what the title would become later, because it actually has a decapitated head panel inside. So extra bonus as well. This was a 1.5 that sold, and it sold for $495. Now that's a new record. The previous record was set back a couple of years ago for $479. So, it's up from its prior record. Not a huge amount, but it is up. There are 71 of these on the census, and 68 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 8 on the list is Captain Midnight number 1. This is from Fawcett from 1942. It is a Jack Binder cover, and it is the origin and first appearance of Captain Midnight. Um, Captain Midnight was one of Fawcett's main characters. You have Bullet Man, Captain Marvel Jr., Mary Marvel, the whole Marvel family, and Captain Midnight was one of those characters that was one of the major characters for Fawcett. This was a 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $685. Now that's up considerably from the previous record, but the previous record was set way back when. The previous record was set back in November of 2014 for $435, so 10 years ago. So you would expect it to go up a bit over that 10-year period. Now, I looked at kind of more recent sales. There was a 4.0 that sold back in 2016, so not even that much more recent, for $466. So this is up even over the 4.0, but there's just not enough recent sales to compare it with that you can get a very accurate interpretation of what this price, what the value should be today. I would have guessed around the $600 to $800 range. It's hard to really say, but definitely this was a strong sale, a new record as well. There's 56 of these on the census, and 49 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Special Edition Comics number 1, another Fawcett Comics from 1940, and this is a C.C. Beck cover. This is the first book devoted to Captain Marvel, and it predates Captain Marvel Adventures number 1. So it's considered to be kind of the first titled Captain Marvel book. First book devoted to Captain Marvel. Major book. It's also the first appearance of Ali Rog. I'm trying to pronounce it backwards, which is this gorilla monster character that's in Captain Marvel. It's just gorilla backwards is Ali Rog. This is his first appearance as well. So this was a 1.0 that sold. So this is the entry-level book for getting into this book. And it sold for $787. Now that's up compared to the previous record for this book, which was set back in July of 2024, so just a few months ago, for $660. So it's up considerably. I was actually bidding on this one, and it blew past what I thought it was going to sell for. Just kept on going. So this one was a very strong sale. There's 116 of these on the census, and 79 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 6 on the list is Sad Sack number 1. This is from Harvey, 1949. It's a George Baker cover. George Baker was actually the creator of Sad Sack, so this is kind of a cool book for that reason. It is the first appearance of Little Dot, sort of another major Harvey character, and it's an infinity cover, which is kind of fun as well. And inside, there's actually a bio of George Baker and gives a little bit of his history. He was actually a military man who, while he was serving, they actually created a weekly magazine called the Yank, Yank magazine, and he contributed his cartoon art to that magazine, and that's where actually Sad Sack got its first appearance. So he was actually a Sergeant George Baker. So interesting history behind this gentleman who produced Sad Sack. So this was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $1,250. This is a major new record for this book because the previous record was set back in April of 2018 for $750. This book actually was on the downturn for a little while because the last sale was actually in January of 2020 for $492. So it's up like 2.5 times from the previous sale and almost double from the prior record. So very strong sale for this book. There's 40 of these on the census, and 37 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 5 on the list is Popeye _1 from Dell Comics, 1948. It is a Bud Sagendorf cover, Sagendorf cover. This is the first ongoing title for Popeye. Popeye actually has, like, earlier titled books within the Dell 4-color run, but they are Dell 4-color titles. So it's Dell 4-color, whatever issues they were. But this is the first ongoing series for Popeye. This was a really high-grade copy that sold. It was a 9.0 that sold, and it sold for $2,000. I actually, when I saw this sale, I thought, wow, that's a really big sale, because I actually have a fairly high-grade copy of this myself, which I didn't pay that much for. So when I saw this big sale, I was like, oh, wow, maybe my book has gone up. However, when I looked at the sales history for this 9.0, it was actually down. So the previous record for this book was set back in December of 2022 for $2,500. Now, that book needs a little bit of explanation. The one that was sold in December of 2022, well, that's during COVID, first of all. So there was a bit of a spike, even for some of these Golden Age titles. For some reason, there was a spike around the Popeye titles. I'm not sure why, but there was. And this was an old case. Back in 2020, too, a lot of people would, when they would sell their books, they would say, oh, it's an old case. It's never been cracked, or it's never been pressed. It's never been, so there's always that belief that, oh, you could find one of these old labels, you could crack it and press it and then get a higher grade. Because if you, at these high grades, like if it goes from a 9.0 to a 9.2, it's actually doubling in value. If it goes from a 9.0 to a 9.4, you're actually quadrupling the value. So there's a lot of incentive to pay a little extra for an old case. So I think somebody kind of overpaid for that older case back in 2022. So I have to put that caveat, because this seems like a weak sale because it's down 25%, or 20%, I should say. But really, there's caveats to that other sale. The last sale actually for Popeye in this grade was actually in May of 2024 for $1,300. So just to show you how out of whack that $2,500 sales was. So this is kind of more in line with what the trajectory of the book was. It's actually been kind of going up. It's actually a strong sale. Just that one outlier sale needed a little bit of explanation. Hope that makes sense. There's 91 of these on the census, and 98 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 4 on the list is Action Comics number 47. This is from DC Comics, 1942. It is a Fred Ray cover, and it is the very first time you see Lex Luthor on the cover. Now, it's only the back of him that you see, actually. He's being thrown through a wall, which, you do with your bad guys. You also see Lex Luthor as being bald, which is, like, when you see the very first appearances of Lex Luthor, he actually had red hair. Now he's a bald character. Something, a little bit of Lex Luthor history there. This was an interesting sale. This was a 4.0 that sold, and it sold in an eBay auction. That was really, like, a lot of activity on this auction. And it sold for $2,013, which just blew out the previous record for this book. The previous record for this was set back in April of 2022 for $1,320. So almost like 80% up from the prior record. Just a very strong sale for this book. There are 75 of these on the census, and 66 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is New York World's Fair #2, kind of, from 1940. This is DC Comics 1940. It is a Jack Burnley cover. And it is the first time you get Batman, Robin, and Superman all on the cover together. This kind of leads into a World's Finest Comics, or it's actually titled World's Best Comics, and then becomes World's Finest Comics. Very long-living title for DC. So this is kind of a major book. This one was interesting because New York World's Fair 1939, which was the prior issue, was set at 25 cents. And it actually had problems because that was pretty expensive for a comic back in the day. I mean, it's 2.5 times more expensive than what most comics were selling for, though it was a much thicker book. Later on, they actually had to, in order to encourage sales, you could order the World's Fair number 39, and they would actually include a copy of Superman 1. So just, that's, man, I wish I had picked that up. So that's how they were trying to sell it. And they also reduced the price. They actually put a sticker on the World's Fair number 39, World's Fair, New York World's Fair 1939, a 15-cent price ticket, because they realized they had overpriced it and just priced it too high for people to buy. So this one, they didn't make that same mistake. They actually just out of the gate priced it at 15 cents. So I just wanted to give a little history there. This was a 6.0 that sold, which is a really high grade for this book. And it sold for $5,025. This is a new record. The previous record for this book was set back in September of 2021 for $4,899. And actually, the last sale was actually down from that. The last sale was set back in December of 2022 for $4,255. So this book was actually a little bit trending down. It's kind of one of these ones that kind of went down and up. You know, it's like, it's not a very consistent trend line because it just doesn't have that many sales. It's, you know, scattered sales every few years for this book. But this is a very strong sale, a new record, up a couple $100 from the prior record. Very strong sale for this book. There's 169 of these on the census, and 132 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 2 on the list is Batman number 16. This is from DC Comics, 1943. It's a Fred Ray and Jerry Robinson cover. And this one's interesting because it's actually the reverse of the cover for Batman number 9. It's just a flip of the cover. And it's also the first appearance of Alfred. Gives his origin and first appearance. So a very important key book because Alfred is kind of a major Batman character. I'd say he, next to Robin, would be one of the more major characters for the whole Batman lore. Now, this was an interesting one because this was a 6.0 that sold, and it was a pedigree copy. It was from the Promise Collection. If you're not familiar with the Promise Collection, it's a pedigree where 2 brothers had gone off to war. One had a great comic collection, and he asked his brother to promise him that if anything bad happened to him, that he would take care of this massive collection that he had of comics. And sadly, he didn't survive the war, and his brother kept that promise. So therefore, it was called the Promise Collection. Now, during COVID, you know, this was a 6.0 Promise Collection that sold for $7,065. But during COVID, the Promise Collection was all the rage. It was like there was a massive sale on Heritage Auctions for the Promise Collection. It was hyped. It was actually one of these pedigrees that was given a lot of buzz. And the sales for the Promise Collection during that that perfect time, the perfect storm, you know, it's a cool pedigree. People were spending through the roof on comics. It was just really good time to sell. And the Promise Collection, I was seeing prices going for 2-3 times what they should have been going for. It was pretty crazy. So this book during that time period sold for $9,000 on Heritage. Okay, so this is 2022, peak of the market, sold for $9,000. So it is down $2,000 from that prior record. Okay, but I just wanted to give you the context of that prior record. That was sort of an outlier sale. Now, typically, this book, actually, I think whoever did buy this book did get it at a good price, because there was a blue label that just recently sold. So pedigrees usually sell for anywhere from 50 to 100% more than their blue label counterparts, depending on how cool the pedigree is, I should say. Well, a blue label sold back in April of 2024 for $6,600. So this is obviously above that. It's a higher price, but it's not nearly what you would expect a pedigree to sell for. So this was a bit of a weaker sale for this book. And I think there is that sort of pullback that we see from the Promise Collection mega sales that happened at Heritage from 2022 till now. I've seen a lot of the price corrections in those books, and over corrections actually. So it is what it is. It has gone down. So just definitely one that I think is in that price correction kind of phase. There's 278 of these on the census, and 216 of them are universal blue labels. Number 1 on the list is Pep Comics number 36. This is from MLJ 1943. It's a Bob Montana cover, and it is a major book. This is kind of one of the major key books for Archie Comics. Now, MLJ becomes Archie Comics later on because of the popularity of the character Archie. Well, this is the first time you get Archie on the cover. And he's being held up by the shield, which is interesting because really the main character up till this point was the shield. But soon afterwards, it switches to being Archie is the main character. And soon after, pretty much all the covers have Archie on the cover instead of the shield. So this one is that kind of transition book. It's also an infinity cover. It's a really interesting infinity. You have all the people in the background reading Archie, the Pep 36, and it's infinity that way. So kind of a cool infinity cover. This was actually a weak sale. It was a 7.0 that sold, and it sold for $7,754.32. Now, the previous record for this book was set back in November of 2018 for $9,900. So this is down from that prior record. It just didn't perform that well. I'm not quite sure why, but I on all the other ones where there was a bit of a downgrade of the price, I could explain it. But this one, I have no idea. If anyone knows why this one went down, please tell me in the comments below. But it did drop from that prior 2018 sale. Great book. Somebody got a good price on it. I think they did really, really well. There's only 41 of these on the census, and 34 of them are universal blue labels. These early Pep Comics are actually really, really hard to find. And I think somebody got a really great price on this book. Just a really important key for Archie. So what did you think of the list? I'm seeing that things are generally actually improving within the golden age market. For a few weeks there, it looked like the market was kind of not going down, but kind of just sort of holding its own rather than setting many new records. This week, I am seeing record after record. So very strong week. What do you think about the overall market? Are things turning around? I hope so. So tell me in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the list. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.